Have you ever wondered what is the perfect financial plan as a real estate professional? In today's episode, we have the very good fortune of having with us someone who is a certified financial planner, yet who thinks very differently, works with a lot of real estate agents. What he's going to share with us today is going to open your eyes as to what might be possible for you to level out some of the valleys that you experience as a real estate agent and really create the perfect financial plan. It's going to be a great episode. Welcome back to the Think Bigger Real Estate Podcast, where big thinking, high-achieving real estate agents come to build successful businesses and significant lives. All right, welcome back, everybody. Very excited to be with not only my lovely co-host, Stephanie Peck. Hello, how are you?
Hello.
But also Mark Willis, certified financial planner, someone who is very creatively helping people to follow and build very successful financial plans. Mark, such a pleasure to have you here today.
Glad to be on. Thank you.
And good to be connected again. Mark had to remind me that we had met many years ago. I guess it feels like many years ago, but we're excited to have him back on the show and really learn about how he helps professionals who are successful, ambitious to create a great plan. So
that's
Mark,
right. It was about 35 years ago in 2019, or at least it feels that way.
Yeah, we can all relate to that. Especially with today being election day. For those that are watching live, we're excited to have you here. Hopefully we don't enter any more weird psyops coming.
That's right.
So Mark, please tell us just quick background on you. Why should people listen to you?
Well, thank you again for the opportunity. And, the last 10, 12 years actually has been quite a journey for me. I've had the great privilege of working with a little over 1,500 clients in all 50 states, many of whom are real estate investors, business owners, and real estate agents, many of whom are already thinking differently about their money, and then they're being forced, if they even choose to step through the doorway of a traditional financial planner, they're being in many ways cajoled or forced into sort of fitting into the shoebox, the shoehorning of the financial plan that the typical average financial advisor would have them get into, whether or not it's in their best interest and whatnot. So what I've had, again, the great honor to do is to help people think outside that box, look critically at the traditional financial planning methods that I think have at least 4 major problems with them, and then look at better alternatives that give them, as we say, the perfect, or as close to perfect as legally possible, financial plan.
Mark, what would you say? I think that's a great segue into if I could quiz you on what are the 4 biggest challenges that people have with the financial plan?
Good. Yeah. Well, so fast rewind, I guess, back to 1981. And something was born that year. It's called the 401k. Now, if that surprises you, it surprised me to learn that that is how young the 401k and IRA, by the way, is. It's very young. In fact, the IRA and the 401k is so young, if it was a person, it couldn't even be old enough to retire yet. It couldn't even access its own money. And we have fallen into this belief that it was created on the 8th day. No, it certainly hasn't. It's a grand experiment, and we're all sort of living in this experiment now. Well, how's it been working out for us? It's the old Dr. Phil question. How's that been working out for you? On the whole, the best part about the IRA and the 401k is that it forced us to pack money into something. It forced us to live on less than we made. Everything else about the 401k and IRA, I think, has been a complete disaster. And even the father of the 401k, the guy his name is Ted Benna, the guy who discovered this subsection of the tax code, has come out and said he would abolish and destroy the 401k and start fresh if he had the chance. So what is going on with these traditional retirement plans that we have, 35, almost $40 trillion baked into these things? Number one, there's no guarantees. So that's the first flat tire. There's no way to know if you're even going to have what you think you're going to have when it's time to retire. Is literally the only guarantee is the second flat tire, which is the fees. The only guarantee in your 401k or IRA is that somebody else besides you is going to get paid. Now, I got no problem with people getting paid. I know, if you're a real estate agent listening to this, it's important to be well paid for what you do. But if the financial planner or advisor or financial outfit is getting paid more than you are, if they've got that ready, guaranteed stream of income and you have nothing but risk, something's wrong there. Third flat tire are future taxes. So think about it for a minute. Just ask yourself this question. Given what if you're listening to this, you're trying to be a smart individual, you're trying to be a better business owner, you're trying to be good at what you do and think carefully about how you deal with your money. think about where we are either as a country or in your own personal income journey. If you think you're going to be more profitable in the future, if you think you're going to be making more money in the future, and or if you believe the taxes in this country are going to go up due to economic situations that our country finds itself in, does it make any sense at all to put money in a tax deferred vehicle under either of those circumstances?
Yeah.
I can't think of a good reason. Okay. That's a big deal. The fourth and final flat tire that just, I think, eviscerates these traditional retirement accounts is that it's kind of personal. None of us know that final day we're going to take our last breath. We don't know how long we're going to live. And the 401k and the IRA have no answer for how long you're going to live, or if you might just outlive the savings that you're able to scratch together in those typical retirement accounts. So what's left? The only advantage I can find in the so average financial plans is the forced savings. And there's lots of things you can do besides the 401k and IRA to set aside for your future that I think helps you much greater than these retirement traps.
Boy, Stephanie, I'm sure your mind's racing as you've built a very successful, wealth portfolio without maybe following kind of the traditional 401k plan. Do any of these in particular really stand out to you saying, yeah, I feel that same way too?
When Mark said to kind of forecast out and in the future, do you plan to make more money and do you expect that you'll be paying more taxes? Yes. And yes, we should all be expecting that. So what's the alternative? I mean, yeah, I'm excited to hear what the alternative is, because working with a lot of clients in one of their biggest financial decisions, most of the time, that's the path that I see them on, is the 401k path. And I want to throw another curveball at you and say, some of them will say, well, because my employer matches it, it's free money, right? I'm getting some free money. So tell us more about your thoughts on that. And then what is the better alternative?
Well, that's a great point. Now, if you're in now, there's been research done that there's no such thing as free money. Let me just say that up front. I don't think any of us are, fooled by the idea of free money. The only free lunch is the cheese on the wrong end of a mousetrap. Okay, so be careful with the free. And I know what you mean. I hear it all the time. And believe me, whenever I meet someone who has a match in their 401k, most of the time I'm going to encourage them to put into the 401k up to that match and no more. Nothing wrong with that. Unless you could negotiate with your 401k. If you have a small enough employer to say, hey, please just give me the money that I'm owed, I'll go do something better with it. Most small employers may be open to that with you, but most of the big ones, you're not going to fight. If you're working for the Fortune 500 or whatever, just put it in up to the match and then go find something better to do with the rest of your money. As I say, the 401k and IRA, I have no love lost with them, of course, as you could probably tell. And I kind of refer to them as buying your retirement at the mall. You're underperforming and you're overpaying for the experience. So put it in up to the match would be my quick answer to that, Stephanie. I totally agree.
Great.
So
and as far as
what are some other options?
Yeah, well, as far as the other question you asked, yeah, thank you. So let's have a little thought experiment here. If you had the chance to just start fresh, at some point somebody cooked up the 401k in their mind, right? So every financial vehicle, every financial tool was once the harebrained scheme of somebody mowing their lawn or taking a shower or something. They came up with it somehow. So let's take a minute and just for a moment and pretend that you have a magic wand. And Stephanie, I'll use you as our fun guinea pig here, if you would be so kind. Take with me, and feel free, Justin, too, to chime in. But if you could just wave a magic wand and legally create a financial tool that did everything you wanted it to do for you, if it could essentially do all of the functions that you want money to perform for you as. I don't like nouns when it comes to money. I like verbs and adjectives. In other words, I don't care what you call the money. I don't care what you call the account or whatever, as long as it does what I want it to do for me. One of the big realizations that I had when I was becoming a CFP was just, as I looked over 450 financial vehicles, how you could combine those into millions of kinds of portfolios. What I found was, and this is such a blatantly obvious aha moment for me, but it really hit me at my core. Where you put your money makes it do different things. That's just a finance 101 kind of reality. But what kind of a financial life and life in general do you want to live? If you want certain functions, you have to think about carefully where you put your money. So let's have a little fun with this, if you guys would be so kind. What are some characteristics? If you could wave that magic wand, I'll give you one to just get you started. How about a great rate of return? That's something I want. I want to be able to at least keep up with and beat inflation.
Mhm.
I'll throw one more out there and then I'll pass it to you guys. I want it to be tax-free when I pull the money out. Whenever I access the money, I don't want there to be a tax man, pulling the lever to shrink my money down to their size. So those are two anyway: great rate of return and tax-free access to the cash. Anybody else want to chime in?
Some liquidity. One thing about a 401k is you're heavily penalized when you utilize it, right? So it'd be nice to have some liquidity.
Yeah. What would that help you accomplish as a real estate agent and someone who owns a business? What would liquidity allow you to do?
And I'm not actively selling real estate at this time, but again, I do run a company called Pro Insight, which is a technology platform, and it would allow me to invest in the company, which I have. I've invested in the company, pulled from a 401k, and obviously paid heavily for that, right? That was not very fun. But at the same time, the upside, I believe is going to be much greater than the downside. But it would be nice to have liquidity when good opportunities come along, whether they be a business, whether it be a real estate opportunity, right? It'd be nice to say, hey, there's a good opportunity. I'm going to pull money and put it towards that without, getting a big haircut for doing so.
Huge deal, that access to money. Stephanie, what would you add?
Something that would pay me indefinitely.
Mm-hmm.
And that would have a tax-free inheritance that I could pass on to my kids.
Wow. That's one, I think that's thinking so long range. I love it. That's super great that you brought those two in. I might even add just one or two more just to spice up the stew that we're making. How about privacy? I want to be able to keep this thing off of the credit reports and banks. And, I want to be able to keep it out of the courts. If God forbid someone ever sued me or my company, I don't want it to show up on those. I also don't want it to show up whenever I send my daughter to college someday. I don't want it to be like a big juicy asset that someone else could grab instead of sending my daughter to college with a scholarship or a grant. I want it to be hidden from the right entities. But I want it to be visible to the other entities like a bank. I want it to be a current asset on the balance sheet of my business if I want to, get a loan or something like that. So I want it to be camouflaged in the right ways. I also want it to avoid probate, where when I pass away, I don't want it to necessarily go through the hands of predators who leech off the backs of people's estates whenever you pass away. It's so common. I hear about it through my clients whose parents passed away or whatever. And then unfortunately, people come out of the woodwork saying, your father owed us blank. And it's just not a way I want to leave my family that last gift, right? I want it to bypass probate so that my beneficiaries get that money without delay. Okay, so at this point, most of the time, you might, if you're listening, you might pause this or watch this later and maybe make your own list because your thought process here is the most important part. But at some point along this conversation that I have with clients, they start to think, well, is this legal? Are we doing something wrong just by having this conversation here? Is this a waste of time? Nothing could be this perfect.
This is recorded, just so you know.
Yeah, good. Yeah, the right people are listening in. Okay, so as I stumbled across, and again, hundreds of different financial tools, it was never my intention to be so compelled by something that I felt like folks at least need to know about it, even if it was not ultimately something they chose to do. And we are a full financial firm. So everything from Social Security strategies to IRA planning and rollovers to college planning to business startup and valuation and acquisition to real estate investing to estate planning. Even tax strategy. We are a full financial firm. And so we work with folks in all spectrums, areas, and the like. But one tool that has stuck with me is, of all things, a dividend paying whole life insurance contract. Now, sometimes we refer to this as a specially designed form of whole life. We call it Bank on Yourself for short. Now, for those that have been waiting with bated breath, well, what's this guy talking about? Hopefully you don't turn off the video here. Allow me to just explain this for a second. Everything we just described, everything Stephanie said, everything that Justin just said, everything I said is true about whole life insurance. It has a great rate of return if we designed it correctly. It's accessible tax-free if we designed it correctly. It's liquid, meaning we can always get the cash, not just the death benefit. Okay, that'll come later. You know, that's, Stephanie, as you mentioned, an income tax-free inheritance. Well, life insurance is income tax-free when you pass away. The liquidity aspect of the cash value of these policies is huge for your business. If you're running a business, if you're a real estate agent, having liquid access to money can help you smooth out those very volatile months, those seasons where nobody seems to return your phone calls, nobody's selling or buying. You know, you can make it through a tough spot, or as Justin said, you can take advantage of opportunities when times are good. You know, if you're sitting on, let's say, for example, $500,000 in cash value, and you see a great real estate opportunity down the street, what's stopping you from accessing that money? There's a gentleman down in Texas. He's a client of mine. He recently pulled $500,000 from several of his policies, and he used it to become his own syndication with himself. So he's literally managing an apartment complex that he bought with his policy and didn't have to beg or kiss the ring of a banker to do it. Now, we've talked about all the other features, but let me just bring one more up, and then I want to get your feedback. This one is almost, it's mind-boggling when I think about it. But in most financial tools, when you access the money, like a savings account, if I had $50,000 in a policy, it's going to act different. But if I had $50,000 in a savings account, and let's say I withdrew $40,000, okay, so I had 50, I took out 40, I'm only going to be earning interest on the remaining 10 grand, right? It's pretty typical. Same with 401ks and brokerage accounts and everything else. But when you have $50,000 in a whole life policy designed the Bank on Yourself way, and you borrow against that 50 grand, the policy will continue to earn interest and grow as if there was not a loan taken. On the full $50,000, it continues to compound and earn interest. That to me is like letting your money do two things at once. And I'm not familiar with many other financial tools that let you do that. So if all this is true about whole life insurance, why haven't we been taught this? And why wasn't it something that was at least as popular as the 401k with all of its flat tires? Why wasn't this at least presented to you when you got your, W-2 job, when you were just out of college? It should be at least mentioned alongside other tools and strategies. Because if you think about it, and I'll hush after this and get your feedback, if this was all true, what would this mean for your financial life, for your business? How would it help you the most if you had guaranteed, liquid, tax-free access to money for emergencies or opportunities? I mean, what would that change about the trajectory of America or even your own business?
I'll put in maybe an additional question. Like, imagine, Stephanie, if countless of your clients had this kind of tool to where you had many more people who on a moment's notice could be an investor as well, right? Who maybe utilize you as a agent for their primary residence. And now they've got this vehicle to where you've got this massive investor list of people who you can go to say, look, I found a killer deal. I just took one down myself, and I don't have capacity right now to do another one, but this deal is fresh. And I'm sure you already have a list like that, but imagine more and more Americans powered with that. I would imagine that'd be pretty interesting being in your shoes, right?
Absolutely. And I have names coming to mind right now in that situation where I've come to them with an opportunity in real estate, and their answer is, my money's tied up in a 401k. I can't access it. Or, I need to hold on to this amount of money in the bank. I've just got cash sitting here, and I think that cash sitting in a savings account is doing me a favor, but it's not enough to do what I need to do to go to that higher level of investing.
Interesting. Mark, let me ask a question to you, because again, I think all the boxes that we had aspired for a financial vehicle to checked, right? what is it that, why is it that not everybody agrees with this, right?
Mhm.
What are they missing, or what's the maybe truths that they're holding on to that might be impeding people from having kind of an open mind about this?
That's a very articulated question. Thank you. Yeah, you're exactly right. There's plenty of bias, and I would be the first among them. When I first stumbled across this, it took me a good 7 months to crack open my own mind on this because I'd been fed a lot of information that was patently out of date. It's sort of like saying when someone on the radio or on YouTube says, all whole life is crap, or whatever they say, the first thing I think of is, well, what about all cars? Are they all a bad deal? Or what about all real estate? There's certainly bad real estate out there.
Yeah.
There is. There's certainly bad cars. I could buy a lemon, right? It's all in the engineering. It's all in the design. It's all in your intention to work with an advisor that knew what he or she was doing when he built it for you. Because the design of the policy can make a big difference. There are roughly 1,000 life insurance companies in the United States, and I would not design this strategy with 99% of them. There's maybe about a dozen to 2 dozen companies that really fit the bill, and there's a list of 30 different design levers and pulleys and buttons I got to push to design this correctly, and there's not enough time to really get into all those. But you'd want to make sure, just to give you a few, it's a mutually owned life insurance company. You'd want to make sure it's dividend paying whole life insurance. It needs to have a paid up additions rider. It needs to be non-direct recognition in how they approach your policy loans, just to name a few. And again, we don't have to go into that for much, but if you didn't remember any of that and all you needed was one thing to recall, just look for a bank on yourself designed policy. It's sort of like a USDA organic seal. If you've bought a banana lately, you might have seen one. You know that there's a difference between USDA organic and other knockoff brands out there, like the words all natural, for example. Doesn't mean that it's truly healthy for you if it has the words all natural on the side of the label. You want the true seal, which in this part of the financial world, I found as I did my own research, is something called Bank on Yourself. It's the only credentialing program and engineering design that really does what we've been discussing today. So to answer your question, it's mainly just possibly poor exposure to, a bad experience with a whole life policy you may have had from, a poorly designed company or poorly designed product with an agent that didn't know what he or she was doing.
I have
Good to know that they're not all the same.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. We don't want to be getting on Google.
That's
and
right.
typing this in and going, oh, well, I can buy this one, with maybe no fees, and this looks like a better deal. You get what you pay for, and you want to be going to professionals that can advise you to create a package that makes most sense for your particular goals.
That's right. Yeah. Well said. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's kind of, similar to trying to find a real estate agent on Google as well, right? Is it just because somebody has money to put behind an advertising campaign does not mean that they are the right agent for you. It doesn't mean that they're the right person who's actually going to take the best care of you. They just have devoted more money to advertising, which sometimes is a concern, right? Is that maybe they're covering up for having a lack of referral-based business. We have a question here in the audience. What is the rate of growth? My current brokerage account is paying an average 14.9%. That's impressive, right? I would say that that's probably uncommon over the last 20 years. So is there an opportunity cost of this kind of vehicle? And I think I know the answer, but I'm sure you're more qualified to ask that. Thanks, Brad, for the great question.
First of all, Brad, send me your portfolio and I would gladly review your accounts. And then if you truly are getting 14.9%, I'll sell everything I have and put all my money in that portfolio. Because that's great news. Great to hear. Over 20 years. That's wonderful. Dalbar, the third-party research firm, Dalbar, D-A-L-B-A-R, does an annual study of actual investors who invest over a long period of time. They did 30 years. They did 20 years. So, the average return is an interesting phrase. We're going to come back to that in a minute, Brad. But they averaged the real return of actual investors who are in stocks and bonds blended, over 30 years. That's the typical 401k, the typical IRA, was 3.6% over 30 years in the markets.
Wow.
And that's before taxes are taken into account. Now it did factor fees, but it doesn't factor taxes. So that's pathetic. That's below inflation.
Mhm.
Even though the statements on those same people's returns were saying 8%, 9%, how is it possible that I could have an average rate of return and actually not have that much in growth? Well, here's an example, a little fun with math. Okay, so Justin, let's say that you took a stock and you bought some stock for $10,000 and you watched that stock, and in year one, your $10,000 grew to $20,000. That's a rate of return of 100%.
Yeah.
Right. So you now have $20,000, and now you're so thrilled you keep that stock, and it loses 50% in year two. I'm sorry to say. So what is half of 20,000? Well, you went from 20 back down to your original $10,000 you started with.
Yep.
Now we're 2 years older now. Do you feel any wealthier after going through that process?
No.
Of course, I'm not even factoring fees or anything, or the time value of money. But the average rate of return that we have here in that story was 25%. You went from plus 100 minus 50 divide by 2. The SEC legally allows us as financial advisors to report an average rate of return of 25% on your annual statement. So your financial advisor may say to you, hey, you've got a 14.9% average rate of return. And Brad, I don't know you from Adam, so you may truly have it. You may be the unicorn among unicorns here. But please take a look at the compound annual growth rate of your portfolio. Cash in, cash out, volatility, and beta. Keep that in mind as you look at your returns. And please understand that even if that's true, even if you've got 14.9%, that will be taxed when the time comes. So a third of that money, unfortunately, will go to Uncle Sam. You might end up with more like an 8%, which, it's not bad. I'm not saying that's bad, but keep that in mind that some of that belongs to the government. So to answer your question, Brad, whole life policies are not an investment. They're going to be in the middle single-digit returns. So they're not going to keep up with the best years of the market. And we've certainly gone through a long bull market these last 12, 13 years. These are going to be more like 5, 6%. Now that is a tax-free return. So whole life policies don't have to worry about taxes or fees. So if I get 5 or 6% over time from a whole life policy, and I have liquid access to it that I could then use to go buy some real estate to get another 10 or 12%, let's say, or whatever you could possibly do in a real estate deal, while the policy continues to compound, that's starting to look sort of cool. But again, just to keep everything in check, because there's no free lunch, again, except that cheese on the mousetrap. Whole life policies are not meant to be seen as an investment replacer. They're meant to be seen as your savings bedrock from which you can access the money for other big investments. So somewhere between 4.5% and 6% is pretty typical over time with most whole life policies if they're designed correctly. Hope that helps.
Great answer. Great feedback. I think that gives everybody maybe a better perspective on how things are calculated, right? And the ability to maybe ask some different questions. So appreciate that, Brad. I know Brad's a really astute guy, so appreciate him bringing that to the table. We're about out of time. Stephanie, any final questions from you before we begin the wrap up?
I just want to know, how do I get more time with Mark or someone on his team to see if this is a good fit for me? Because probably anyone listening that's questioning whether they're on the right path, do they have the best options and best opportunity, is probably also right now saying, how do I learn more about this in my personal situation?
I appreciate that question very much. It's a chance for us to get to know each person who's listening. If you'd like to learn more, just imagine what this might do for your business, for your personal life. If you'd like to discover how you can get a bigger and bigger net worth on this account every single year, no matter what the stock market's doing or what the real estate market is doing, or have some liquid access to money, we can help. We work with folks in all 50 states, and I'd be honored to serve you and have at least a 15-minute phone strategy session. Doesn't cost anything for us to talk. You can go to kickstartwithmark.com. That's kickstartwithmark.com. 15 minutes, get your questions answered, see if it's the right fit. Again, we are a full financial firm, so if that works, great. If another strategy works better, that's great too. But we'll start there and see where we can go from there. Thank you so much.
Love it. Great stuff. Mark, final question here. As I mentioned before, I lead a company called ProInsight, which helps professionals like you collaborate with great real estate agents like Stephanie. We believe that each of you have ideal clients that could be served by each other. Would love to hear from a collaboration standpoint. Who's your favorite professional with whom you collaborate really well with? Could be a tax professional, could be an attorney, could be a real estate agent. What have you found to be a very collaborative, a great collaborative partner?
Wow, that's a great question. I love it because it brings us to think about something beyond just one episode here. And I think the best conversations are the ones that keep on happening. And I always say being an adult is sort of like playing in the sandbox. You want to play in a way that gets you invited back next time. So I hope I have brought some value to you guys today and played well in the sandbox with you. Yeah, there's been lots of great opportunities. I'm in the middle of writing a book right now with a gentleman. His name is David C. Barnett. And he and I are working on, this is a hush-hush feature for now, or project for now, but soon, and hopefully very soon, we'll have the book ready. He runs a business investors collaboration. He helps them get their business ready to sell, or if they're investors, get them ready to buy a business and then negotiate a fair price. And he's had such great success in serving them. He's wonderful at what he does. And so he and I are writing a book about how you can use Bank on Yourself for business investing. So great opportunity. If you want offline, we can get you all the contact information.
Yeah, sounds great. Sounds like a great collaborative partner.
Yeah, well, I'm sure all over YouTube too. So
very cool. Well, I'm sure we'll have additional conversations because we believe very much in the power of collaboration. As you can tell, Stephanie and I collaborating to bring a great collaborative partner like you to the table to serve our respective audiences. So appreciate it very much, Mark. Again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Thank you, Stephanie, for all your tremendous insight and really the leader that you are in the industry. Mark, thank you as well. And my final request of everybody listening here today are these final 3 words, and they are go think bigger. Mark, we appreciate you helping us do that today.
Thank you.
Now, before you go, remember, big thinkers and high achievers take action. Here's one way to do this. Find me on social media and send me in a direct message one aha that you're going to take action upon from today's episode. I can't wait to be connected